Children are brilliant at rationalizing how a parent could simultaneously love them, but also hurt and punish and abandon them. And as children, we had to make it all fit in our minds. But if you're still doing this as an adult, and a lot of us get stuck in that pattern, you may have gotten too good for your own good at cognitive dissonance. And that's the psychological term for the mental disturbance and stress you feel when you vaguely realize that what you're experiencing and the story you tell yourself about what you're experiencing don't line up at all. Like someone is treating you horribly and making your life miserable, and you keep finding ways to believe it's really a great relationship. But when you're in cognitive dissonance, it can be very hard to think clearly or take sane action to protect yourself. My letter today is from a woman I'll call Stefania, and she writes, "Dear Anna, I always wanted to have children and I always wanted a husband, but all my exes dumped and abandoned me. All my exes made me feel like worthless trash and took advantage of my kind heart. I'm 43 years old." All right, Stefania, I've got my fairy pencil. I'm going to circle things I want to come back to on a second reading, but let's go through and see what's going on here. She says, "I grew up with narcissistic parents, and my mom is extremely narcissistic. My mom would hit me all the time because she said she's trying to discipline me. My mom was also a very argumentative person and has to get the last word. As a child, she'd always yell at me and insult me. I really don't remember why I was being hit or yelled at. I thought I was just a normal kid. She stopped hitting me when I was 16 years old, and then she said things to make me feel ashamed of myself. She told me I wasn't good enough compared to other teenagers my age and made me feel less than. I've been critiqued and criticized my whole life. When I asked her why she did this to me, she denied it and said she's the best mother anyone could have in this whole entire world." Isn't that a telltale line, huh? Okay. "My dad never abused me as much, but he psychologically abused my mom. Bullying and narcissistic abuse didn't end for me there. This happened with friends and boyfriends. I was always a people pleaser and always trying to make everyone like me, but they always preferred someone else over me. People always tried to get me to change who I am and made me feel as if I weren't good enough. I never even had a best friend growing up. Currently, I'm in a relationship with a drug addict, and he has a gambling addiction. His drug of choice is prescription painkillers. He's been on drugs for over 20 years, and we've been together for 2.5 years. I moved in with him after a year of being together. He never told me he's addicted to drugs. I didn't see the signs of drug abuse because I never experienced it before. I finally figured it out when I moved in with him a year into the relationship. My boyfriend is very sweet to me. I know he loves me very much. He'd do anything for me. I also have lots of freedom to do what I want, I bet. I feel like I'm dating a ghost because when he gets high, he sleeps all the time. Or in his spare time, he's at the drug dealer's house getting high. That makes me feel neglected and abandoned. And other times when he hasn't had any drugs, then he's very agitated. He goes in an extreme rampage, stomping and pacing back and forth in the apartment. He swears at me and insults me. He's spit in my face a couple of times. He's kicked me a couple of times. He said he needs drugs to deal with me. He constantly lies and tells excuses for things. He could never take accountability for his own actions because everything is always someone else's fault. He's also spent a chunk of money from the savings account on drugs. He's also very disrespectful when it comes to women. He stares at other women in public, and it makes me feel worthless. I told him how I felt about his behavior in public, and he called me psycho. He also goes to a local convenience store where his ex-girlfriend works. He goes there on average 3 times a week. He said he only goes there for cigarettes and lottery tickets. I asked him not to go to that convenience store because it's disrespectful toward me. I suggested for him to go to another location. He said he's not going there to see her and he's not doing anything wrong. He goes there for 30 minutes, etc., to chat with her. He did mention to me that he'd be okay if I chat with an ex-boyfriend because he trusts me. He thinks as long as he doesn't have sex with another person, then it's not cheating. I tried to explain to him that it's disrespectful toward me, but he doesn't see it that way. The reason I stay with him is because he's one of the best boyfriends I've ever had in my life. You see what I'm saying here? He'd do anything for me. He wants to marry me, and he actually wants to have a future with me. Plus, we currently live together. The majority of my exes wasted my time and didn't really plan a future with me. They didn't even want to move in with me or take steps toward marriage. I wasted a lot of years with these guys. I tried very hard to be a perfect person to make them love me, but they dumped me anyway. My current boyfriend loves me for me and wants a future with me. He promised to quit drugs, quit smoking cigarettes. I did manage to get him to stop going to the casino. I don't think he'd ever quit using drugs, and I don't think he'd ever stop being disrespectful with other women. I know I'm trauma bonded and in a codependent relationship. I know I'm being emotionally abused. But my boyfriend actually wants to marry me, and he wants a future with me, and he loves me for me. I'm 43 years old, not getting any younger, and I didn't have anyone better before him. All my exes dumped me like trash. Crappy childhood fairy, can you help me? Okay, and that's signed from Stefania. I can tell you what might help, Stefania. I have a funny feeling you're not going to listen because I think you're in deep cognitive dissonance. You are not hearing your very own words about this. You are alternatingly telling me he's so sweet and would do anything for you, and he kicks you, and he won't give up any of these horrible, illegal, abusive, disrespectful actions that he takes. You are in cognitive dissonance, my dear, and that feels terrible. It's a strange, fuzzy feeling, and I've been there before too. And there's something about drug addicts that bring it on. You know, when I went to the 12-step program for families of alcoholics, I found out like it's a really normal thing. Like the casual word for that is denial, but it's something so much more sinister than that, where the information of your own mind, of the very thing you're saying, your mind flips and goes, no, that's not happening. And it's continuing to rationalize staying in a relationship. My theory, based on my experience, is a couple of things. Leaving, even the thought of leaving any kind of bonded relationship or sexual relationship specifically, is that it brings on what Pete Walker, the therapist, calls abandonment melange. This very intense set of emotions of like death, like you're getting cast out of life itself. It's so brutal that it feels to your mind like staying in a bad relationship is still better than leaving the bad relationship just because of the emotions that await you that you've been through before. And, you know, you sound like you may have that. You have something that's driving you to be completely irrational about this relationship. The other thing is about drug addicts, because I've had this happen too, and it's very hard for me to understand in my own case, like, why did I not see it at first, like you didn't? When I saw it, why didn't I leave? And I think when you've been through a lot, well, I'll speak for myself. I had been through a lot, and there's something about people who are secretly high that they're, I don't know, it's like a calming influence. And also, they don't have a lot of relationship choices, and so they tend to just stay. And if they can get us to put up with it, to put up with their bad behavior, all the better for them. You know, it's just kind of a low pressure relationship where you never have to be scared that you're too messed up to be with them because they have the obvious messed up problem. But Stefania, the thing that I am so concerned about is that he's physically abusive of you. It's not just, it's so many levels of misery and hopelessness in this relationship, but he kicks you, he hits you, he puts you down, he calls you psycho. There's a deeply wounded part of yourself that is just sort of thinking that somehow this is like the best that there is. And I'm just going to say flat out, when somebody kicks you, it needs to be over, like it's time to go. You say that you think he might give up drugs, but he's not going to give up being disrespectful. And, you know, some people do choose to be in a relationship for life with somebody who is using drugs and who is going up and down through an emotional roller coaster and becoming abusive, up and down, rages, I love you, can't really pull their own weight. Some people choose to do that, and you can choose to do that. You're free to do it. But Stefania, this is a terrible relationship. Here's what I'm going to encourage you to look at, because you say you got dumped in every relationship before. And the question is, what's going on with that? Your mom treated you terribly, right? So when kids grow up with narcissistic parents, I've read so much and listened to videos from people who grew up like that. It really seems to do a number on people, doesn't it? It creates this false self. Certainly what I've witnessed in people who grew up with narcissistic parents, it's like they're never real with you and they're always trying to people please you. You just don't really know what you're dealing with. There's this weird false self. That's what I experienced. I think there were narcissistic behaviors in my family of origin, but in my family of origin, it was more alcoholism. This thing with narcissistic parents, I sure know what it feels like when I'm with people like that. There's like a loss of self. And so that's a lot to overcome. But I would just say, you're 43, I totally understand like wanting to be loved and perhaps have children. You want to have children. And I totally understand that. But please, Stefania, you must not have children with this man, okay? This would be a terrible and abusive thing to do. And anybody who wants to could have children on their own, right? Perhaps, if you're physically capable and financially capable. But most of, I just feel that the right next direction for you is to focus on your own healing, on the consequences of the narcissistic abuse that you suffered as a kid and the neglect, the criticism, so that you can start to vibe at something much better than where you have been, so that you start to have some actual boundaries, so that you can imagine yourself as a happy person who's safe at home, who's treated with respect, and who can respond to other people in the same way. When we're sort of in the throes of being at the effect of the trauma that happened, it can feel so much like, how could somebody reject me? I'm dancing around so fast trying to make them happy. But that dancing around trying to be the perfect, you said like be the perfect person, like it's not attractive. And I know you know that on some gut level. Trying to be the perfect person for somebody is like a weird mask that we wear when we don't think we're worth anything. The person who gets loved fully, the version of you who someone falls deeply in love with, is the real you, is you being yourself, you having a little edge to you sometimes, being a little insecure sometimes, being, clear about who you are and what you're trying to do. Because from that place, you're capable of giving love. This will sound kind of harsh, but if we're being a fake self, trying to get someone to love us, it's really like a manipulation. It's not like a loving exchange of just, people being deeply friends and even more than that, romantically. It's really an effort to objectify somebody and try to make them play a role that we believe is going to make us feel okay. But that is not the same thing as love. And healthy people, the lovely people who you may have fallen in love with, they're looking for something more than that. They're not just trying to play a role in your life or fix this emptiness for you. They want to be loved for real, not kind of had a dance done for them to make them believe that they should stay. It's just not going to work. So real love comes from you being your real self. And being your real self is quite a project. And maybe that doesn't lead to kids. And I totally understand how sad that might be. But what the situation that you're in right now sounds like not the time to have children or to even think about it. So I encourage you, if you're asking my opinion, it's time to leave this relationship. It's an abusive relationship, and it's one that's kind of clogging your ability to see reality for what it is. Have you gone to therapy? This could be the time. That's a place where you can get support and have somebody to talk to and have somebody help you stay in reality about what's going on. I think the hardest thing about being in an abusive relationship and also about living with the effects of a difficult childhood, the hardest thing is that you get this tendency to try to handle everything by yourself. And, like the writing's on the wall, handling it by ourselves hasn't worked for us, right? We need to be connected to other people who help us see reality for what it is and help, support us to take one small step after another to get our life to a better place, to get our mental health to a better place. So I really encourage you to do that. There's some situations that I think professional help really is like the first thing that needs to be done. So I encourage you to do that. And meanwhile, if you want to join our online community, Crappy Childhood Fairy has a secret Facebook group for members. We have a course for people who are trying to learn to change dysfunctional dating patterns. We have a number of courses, and we have a free course called The Daily Practice. I always encourage people to take that. The link is in the description section below, and a lot of people don't realize the description section is big, and you have to click that little more link to make it open up for you, and you can see all the things we offer. But the main thing, Stefania, is I want you to be able to see red flags, because that's what we do, right? As traumatized kids, we end up, the red flags were there, but we don't realize it until after the fact. You know, we can get absolutely broadsided by somebody's drug addiction or their non-seriousness about us or their complete unavailability or unsuitability to be partners to us. And so you want to be able to spot the red flags in advance. And to help with that, I've written down a whole bunch of red flags that you can look for in people. It's a free PDF. Anybody can have it. You can get it by clicking right there. And I will see you very soon.